Hello, and welcome back to The Case For. I'm your host, Matt Campobasso. If you listen to this podcast regularly, you definitely know that over the last few weeks, episodes have been a bit more infrequent than normal. That's not because I've run out of things to say. Those of you that know me in real life know that I never run out of things to say. But lately, life has been very busy. A good busy, but busy. One of the things that has kept me busy is the reason for today's episode. But before we get into that specifically, I want to share a story that I've never told out loud before, ever. Not on this podcast, not with family, not with friends, not with colleagues. And despite never having shared it out loud, it's an important one because it's at the center of what today's episode is all about. So it's a weekend in the year 2012. My son, Luca, is 3 years old. Back then, his hair was wild and curly, and he's laying in bed next to me, and he's got his hand across my chest. So we're in his bedroom. I had gotten home from work late again, and Luca whispered something to me as I laid in bed next to him so we could spend a few minutes together before he fell asleep. Specifically, he said 3 words. "You're here now?" I told him I was, because physically I was. But the reality of it was that my phone was already lit up on his nightstand. I had a court hearing the next day in Chicago at 8:30 in the morning. I had my binders, which were tabbed, outlines stacked in my bags, and lying next to me, my 3-year-old, with his hand on my chest and his breathing getting slow as he drifted off to sleep. Mentally, I was already in the courtroom. As he fell asleep, I assume he was cherishing every moment of the fleeting time with his dad that night. And I, on the other hand, was preparing for an argument for a client whose name I could not tell you right now if my life depended on it. So 2 people in one place, one, my son, present, and taking in those moments as he fell asleep. The other, me, physically there, but missing another personal moment that I could never get back because I was too focused on preparing for a professional moment that ultimately had no bearing on his happiness or the depth of his life or my life. Those are the moments that I reflect back on more frequently as I've gotten older. Those moments reflect the cost that your resume never itemizes. Moments of joy that you don't get back. And I carried those costs for years and years and years. And then I started to be honest with myself about what I was losing because of it. And I wrote a book about it. That book is called The Case for Letting Go, and it's going to be released on Amazon on May 15th. And you can pre-order it right now on Amazon. And today, I want to tell you why this exists. There would be other cracks after that night. A cardiologist who told me my heart was fine, but said the part that mattered, "Matt, you need to get better at managing your stress." Migraines that started at the base of my neck and would do everything in their power to derail day after day. Football game, my son's, in 7th grade, where I looked down at my phone for work and looked up to a chorus of parents saying, "Did you see that?" He had made the play of his life, and I smiled and nodded like I had seen it, but I hadn't. In the car afterward, he replayed the angle and the speed like it was a movie he had directed. He said it was the best play I've ever made, and I told him that I agreed, and I meant it, but I also felt sick that I'd missed it with my eyes. I carried all of that, the cracks, the guilt, the migraines, missed moments, the realization that I had become a machine that cranked out legal advice for years. And then I sat down and I wrote The Case for Letting Go, not because I had a clever idea, but because I had no other choice. Because if I didn't get it out of my body and onto a page, I was going to keep living that version of my life, and it was quietly killing me. So that's why when we come back today, I'll be making the case for letting go. Welcome back. Today's episode is different from anything I've ever done on this show. It's the most personal thing I've ever recorded, and I've recorded a lot of personal things. But I'm releasing it now intentionally because my book, The Case for Letting Go, is released on May 15th, and May, as you may know, is Mental Health Awareness Month. That timing is not a coincidence, it's the whole point. Mental Health Awareness Month has been observed every May since 1949, when Mental Health America started that campaign. And back then, the goal was simple: make mental health as visible and as important as physical health, reduce the stigma, start conversations that save lives. And I can tell you from my own experience, the stigma is real, especially in the legal profession, especially for men, especially for people who have built their entire identity around having it all together. I am 47 years old, and I have practiced law for 20 years. I have been a litigator, a prosecutor, a partner at a law firm, a general counsel, and now a chief legal officer. I have led legal teams across multiple countries. I have sat in boardrooms and courtrooms and war rooms. And for most of that career, I just believed that the cost of all of it was the price of admission: the stress, the sleeplessness, the missed moments, the migraines, the hollow feeling that would come even after a win. And I thought that was normal. I thought that's what a provider does. It took me a very long time to realize I was not being strong. I was being broken and calling it noble. The Case for Letting Go is the story of that realization and everything that came after it. So let's talk for a minute about why this book exists. The Case for Letting Go opens with a scene in my home office. It's about 4 o'clock on a weekday afternoon in between meetings. I've got 3 monitors glowing, emails on one, Slack on the other, something for the board of directors on the third. My desk, as it is always, is clean and orderly, and I realized I had been mistaking order for peace. But those are two very different things. In that moment, on that day, in the quiet of that room, I realized something that I knew with a certainty that scared me. If I didn't stop and take stock, another 40 years of my life would pass without me making changes. And I needed to make those changes. For me, that was the first honest bell. I wrote about my cardiologist visit. I wrote about the night before the TRO hearing, my son's game, missing similar moments for my daughters because my face was buried in my phone dealing with work. I wrote about waking up with a racing mind and racing responsibilities, about a calendar that became a confession. 60-hour weeks were commonplace. I had stacked meetings, constant extraction. I was always on because I had unknowingly volunteered to be. And I wrote about the belief system underneath all of it. The one I'd been running since I was a kid, the oldest child. Make sure your brothers are okay. Keep the house calm. Clean up, literally and figuratively. Head off conflict before it arises. And then law school poured concrete around that. On day 1 of orientation, the dean told us, "We will change the way you think." And they did, brilliantly. But somewhere in that rewiring, my brain took on a job that it was never hired for. And that job was to carry everything. The old me, in 5 words, always ready to give everything. The new me, in 5 words, painfully honest about being human. The Case for Letting Go is the bridge between those two people. My book, The Case for Letting Go, is structured like a legal proceeding. First, because I'm a lawyer, but second, the legal framework, ironically, is the perfect container for this kind of work. The book has 20 chapters, I call them exhibits, and each one is built around something that I have personally struggled with: control, perfectionism, over-responsibility, the addiction of achievement, the myth of someday, the tyranny of urgency, the weight of comparison. Every exhibit follows the same structure. It opens with background, which is my story, my mistake, the lesson I learned. Then there's a discovery request, which is your reflection prompt. Objections, because every meaningful change runs into resistance. And then finally, a ruling, followed by court orders, settlement terms, and a closing argument. But here's the thing. You don't have to be a lawyer to read The Case for Letting Go. You don't need to know what a TRO is or what discovery is. The structure is a metaphor. The courtroom is your own mind. The case is your life. And the verdict that you're working toward is just permission to set things down. The book is organized into 4 parts. The first part is called The Traps We Build. That's where we examine the habits that look like strengths until you realize they're cages. Control, perfectionism, over-responsibility, the way that your lawyer brain rewires you to treat life like a never-ending cross-examination. Part 2 is practicing the pause. It's that breath between the stimulus and the response, accepting what's uncontrollable, learning that not every email needs an immediate reply, and sometimes a reply at all. Part 3 is redefining enough, presence over perfection, rewriting the narrative, and the daily practice of letting go. And part 4 is beyond the illusions, which is me talking about the myth of someday, that tyranny of urgency, the addiction to achievement, and why I think that surrender is not defeat. It also includes a lawyer's toolkit for letting go at the back of the book, which is a practical guide that I put together that you can turn to on a Tuesday at 3:15 when your blood pressure spikes and you need something concrete to do to control yourself. And finally, there's a verdict form, a structured reflection tool where you assess your own case and decide what you're ready to release. So who's this book for? Well, obviously, I wrote The Case for Letting Go for lawyers. That's the starting point. Because I know this profession and I know what it does to people. I've lived it. I've watched brilliant and caring, ambitious people burn themselves to ash and call it a career. The legal profession has some of the highest rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicide of any profession in the country. And the culture does not make it easy to ask for help. But here's what I discovered while I was writing it. The Case for Letting Go is not just for lawyers. The traps that I describe, control, perfectionism, the belief that you have to carry everything, an identity built on achievement, those are human traps. If you have ever felt like your worth is tied to your output, if you have ever woken up on a Sunday morning with a list pressing on your chest and thought, I can't keep doing this, but I don't know how to stop, well, then this book is for you. The trap shows up in medicine, in finance, in education, in parenting, in entrepreneurship, in any life where someone cares deeply and holds on too tightly. The legal framework in this book is a vehicle. The message is universal. And the 20 exhibits are each designed to be worked with, not admired from a distance. This book is meant to be highlighted and dog-eared and argued with and revisited when your life gets loud again. Now, I want to take you inside the first exhibit of The Case for Letting Go because I think it captures the entire thesis of the book. I call this chapter The Cult of Control, and it opens with a line from the film And Justice for All. It's Al Pacino, one of my favorite actors, in full meltdown mode. You're out of order. You're out of order. This whole trial is out of order. Which, if you know lawyers, is a pretty accurate description of how most of us feel any given day. The story of that TRO hearing is the story of the entire book. I spent the night before over-engineering my preparation. Binders tabbed, outlines stacked, answers rehearsed. And I traded a bedtime with my 3-year-old son for footnotes. And the next morning, the judge waved past every single issue that I'd agonized over and issued the order on a whim. And we won. But not because I controlled anything. The weather shifted and I wrote it. And that's the problem with control. It's an illusion. We never had it. We learned how to organize chaos with confidence and citation. That's part of being a lawyer. And then we took that skill and we applied it to everything. Our cases, our calendars, our relationships, our kids' schedules, our own emotions. We grip harder, we do more, we stay longer, we leave no stone unturned, and meanwhile, the world is mostly uncertain. We've been trained to fear that uncertainty and spend our entire careers trying to out-argue weather systems, meanwhile calling it zealous advocacy, while our lives trend towards a slow-motion nervous breakdown in a collared shirt. In The Case for Letting Go, I write that control is also a coping mechanism. It's a security blanket for people terrified of feeling powerless, myself included. We pretend we can finesse everything, preempt life with a memo, treat heartbreak like it's a calendar invite. And the worst conflicts that I've seen aren't about politics or parenting. They're about the inability to stop managing. The shift that I describe in chapter 1 of this book is not about abdication. It's triage. It's about knowing what you can control, readiness, clarity, ethics, sleep, knowing what you can influence, expectations, coordination, and knowing what you can only witness, moods, calendars, and luck. Prepare hard inside the first 2 circles. Hold that third circle lightly. And paradoxically, the work gets better. The room gets calmer, and the picture of your kids on your phone stops feeling like the evidence against you and starts feeling like the reason you're practicing differently. Next, I want to share what writing The Case for Letting Go actually cost me, because I don't want anyone to think this was easy or casual. This book was not written in a weekend of inspiration. It was dragged out of me over months, close to a year. Some of these chapters took weeks to get right because the truth that I was trying to tell myself was one that I hadn't fully accepted. There were paragraphs I wrote and deleted 50 times because they were too honest and there was too much pain within them. But then I'd put them back because too honest was exactly the standard that the case for letting go required. In the book, I write about sitting on a leather couch in therapy, a clock ticking on the wall, and saying out loud that I was doing exactly what I was told would make me successful, yet my cup still felt empty. The therapist gave me simple homework. Decide what you want next. I write about an Avett Brothers song that caught me at my desk and reminded me to live without enemies, including myself. I write about the stillness of my garage on a cold night, sitting in the car, looking like someone who had climbed his mountain, feeling the distance between the life the world sees and the life I was living. And in the book, I write about the ordinary nights that would not be possible before. Me and my kids, fast food, laughter, video games, movies, music, a Target run where my older daughter convinces me she needs more skincare, my son retelling me a play with angles and speed that I actually got to see. Nothing headline worthy, but everything headline worthy. That's the case for letting go. The distance between the person that I was, efficient, controlled, hollow, and the person that I'm becoming. Painfully honest about being human. So here's what I want to say to you, and I mean this. If you have ever sat in a car, in a garage, or sat in the bathroom with the door locked, or laid in bed in the dark, and felt the dissonance between the life that everybody thinks you're living and the life you're actually in, I wrote The Case for Letting Go for you. If you've ever missed a moment with someone you love because something on your phone felt more urgent, and then later you realized that nothing on your phone that night mattered and the moment is gone forever, I wrote this book for you. I didn't write The Case for Letting Go because I had it figured out. I wrote it because I finally stopped pretending I did. The book is available now on Amazon for pre-order. It releases May 15th, right in the heart of Mental Health Awareness Month. And I want you to remember, you're not your wins, you're not your calendar, you're just a person. And being a person on purpose is enough. In The Case for Letting Go, I wrote the following dedication. For every lawyer who thought they had to carry the whole world on their shoulders. And for Luca, Gemma, and Bella, who remind me every day what's worth carrying and what's not. That's the truth. My kids have taught me more about letting go than 20 years of law ever could. And if The Case for Letting Go helps one person hear the bell that I almost missed, that bell that says it's not too late to change, show yourself grace, pay attention, be honest, do the work, then every single sentence I wrote was worth it. Before we go, 3 things. First, please pre-order The Case for Letting Go. It's on Amazon right now. The ebook releases on May 15th. The paperback and hard copy will be available shortly thereafter. The link is in the show notes and on my Substack. If it hits you the way that writing it hit me, please pass it along to someone who needs it. A colleague, a friend, a spouse, somebody whose hands are tired from holding too much. Second, if you're a lawyer or a professional and this episode landed, if you recognize yourself in any of it, I want you to do the smallest version of the thing that The Case for Letting Go is asking. Just let one email sit. Let one thing be imperfect. Close the laptop and just go sit with somebody that you love, just once. Notice what it costs you. I think you're going to find that it's going to cost you nothing. And the thing that you gained was everything. Third, talk about it. As I mentioned, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. The stigma around mental health in the legal profession and in high-performance careers is real and it's dangerous. If this episode or The Case for Letting Go gives you permission to have a conversation that you've been avoiding with a therapist, a partner, a friend, yourself, then that's the most important outcome I could ask for. More important than any book sale, more important than any download number, having that conversation, one person at a time, is the point. So that's the case for today. If you're listening and you've been carrying everything and calling it strength like I did for 20 years, I hear you. I was you. And the thing that I want you to know is what I wish someone had told me 15 years ago. Matt, you're allowed to set things down. You're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to be a human being on purpose. The Case for Letting Go. Pre-order now on Amazon, May 15th. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, whatever your case is, don't be afraid to build it and carry it out into the real world.